Man, just knocked out another 50 push-ups. I got shit all over my stomach. What's up, boys? It's John Mark Stevenson. 6:30 a.m. Just finished about a mile and a half on the treadmill. Just a little bit of cardio. Today's just my straight up rest day. Haven't had one in like probably 3 weeks, so that's what I'm gonna do today. I like to take full rest days where I just literally do a little bit of cardio, occasionally. But man, it's honestly, it's all over. These past couple weeks I've been being so selfish, and it's over. I'm done being selfish. For the longest time, I've wanted to make this YouTube channel about the lessons that I've learned rather than it being about me. And I thought that was me putting you first. But as I've reflected, everyone that I've watched in the past, everyone that I've learned from, coaches I've had, mentors I've invested in, YouTube videos I've watched, podcasts I've listened to, I've not learned from the person just telling me about lessons and trying to tell me, quotes and things to work with. I realized I've learned the most when they have gone deep into themselves and talked about their own experience that led them to learn lessons and led them to think the way that they do. And I don't know if it's an insecurity. I don't know if it's, me trying to act like the focus isn't on me. But after some reflection, I've thought to myself, this is my YouTube channel. You guys are subscribed to watch me. Therefore, it's me being selfish if I don't talk about my past, if I don't talk about my experiences that led me to be the way that I am. So in this video, if you've never seen any of my videos before, I usually sit right here in this seat and I do a sort of a alternative type of podcast where, I talk about a certain lesson that's been bugging me, or, a certain thing that I'm going over with my one-on-one clients, or just a big lesson or framework that I'm using in my life at the moment. And if you're interested in watching those, go back and click on any of the aggression talks. They're all really good in my opinion. But today, I want to talk about my past. What led me to be where I am, what led me to think the way that I do, and where I want to take this channel. Because a lot of you guys, you followed me for, a long time. And I think at the beginning of my channel, I used to talk more about my experiences. And I think that was such a raw aspect. And I thought it was me being proactive and me making a good move to try and just talk more about the lesson. But like I just said, I've realized that that's not true. And so I just want to go ahead and say that that's over. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to be completely just showing my life on YouTube. Still going to do the aggression talks the same way. But I think I'm not just going to post what I think is going to work. I'm going to post what I want to post and what I think is going to benefit you guys the most. And if some people don't like it, great. But the ones that do, that will make me feel fulfilled. As I used to say, if one person watches one of my videos and it changes the way they think in a positive way, changes the way they act in a positive way, then I've won. I feel fulfilled on the inside. So to begin my story, I'll go ahead and preface by saying, those of you that don't know, I'm a fitness and mindset coach, and my long-term goal is to, and this has been said by so many entrepreneurs, so I hate to say it, reform the education system. But it's not necessarily like that. I want to reconfigure masculinity in today's society. I feel like it's been lost, and I feel like masculinity is not just, being strong. Masculinity is not just being, having willpower, being ambitious. Masculinity comes down to every single aspect that I think a man should have. good communication skills, leadership qualities, wisdom, intelligence, self-control, controlled aggression. The man should also be strong. A man should be able to sacrifice. A man should be able to live without anything external to just him. Every single thing in a man should be self-sufficient from him, or else you're not a provider. If you lean on someone else, people cannot lean on you. And that is what I want to reestablish in today's day and age. And long term, I've got a ton of long-term goals, and I want to make sure that I don't go off in a tangent and just start talking about my goals during this video. But for those of you who haven't watched this channel before, that's who I am. That is what I do. And I dedicate every single day of my life to waking up at 4:25, becoming the best version of man that I can be, so that I can lead others, my one-on-one clients, so I can lead those in my school community, so that I can continue to put out content that's valuable and reaches those that are in a position that I used to be in, or they're working through frameworks that I've also worked through. I usually make content for my younger self, for those that have become disciplined in one area and they're struggling to apply that discipline to the rest of their life, for those that feel so lost and trapped like they don't know the next moves to take. And I ignite the flame inside of you to understand that everything you seek is inside of you. You have to become the source that you're seeking from others, from external validation. And that is what I do on this channel. But with that being said, let's go back. Man, I guess we got to go back to, 2010. So I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, which is very odd. A lot of guys, a lot of my clients come in and, I haven't really let it bother me much, but a lot of people think that my name's John. My name is John Mark. Like, my first name is John Mark. I have no middle name. My last name is Stevenson. So my friends, everyone that knows me, people either call me John Mark or JM. No one really calls me John. It's just kind of a sign that you don't exactly know me, but I understand a lot of people. I've never been over that. So how can you know? So born in Birmingham, Alabama, which might be a little surprising to some of you guys, but this isn't like country fuck Alabama. This was sort of, I live in Atlanta, Georgia now. It's the closest thing in Alabama that would be to Atlanta, but small town. Everyone just kind of like, everyone knows each other. Everyone's like upper middle class. And I guess you can say back then we were sort of upper middle class. I was never spoiled. I had to work for everything, but I never had to worry if I was going to have a meal on the table. I never had to worry about, if I was going to be able to sleep in my own bed with a roof over my head. I never had to do that. And that is a huge blessing. But finances were always a topic that was being argued over, yelled, it was just a huge point of conflict in my family. And I noticed that from a very, very young age. And I started to understand how that arose, not from my knowledge, because I would see people that didn't seem like they were smarter than my parents and they had more money. They didn't seem like they were more intelligent, better at communicating, harder working. They had more money and it seemed like they were more well-to-do. So that got my gears turning early, but more on that later. Growing up, I never was a fan of video games. I always was outside. I would go outside every single day barefoot, and I liked to build things. I lived, I had these massive woods behind me. I lived in a nice, like community subdivision of a lot of houses, probably like the biggest neighborhood in all of Alabama. It was pretty big. It was really, really cool place to grow up. But those early years, to be honest, like, I didn't have any problems, and that might be great for some people, but looking back, that probably wasn't great for me, because I understand that the depth of your struggle determines the height of your success. So I wasn't really tested much, my parents loved me, and, I had a good amount of friends and all this stuff, but I didn't like to stay inside. I like to be outside, build shit, and, jump on the trampoline, ride my bike, go out in the woods. I would always, I would go to lots that they were building, houses that they were constructing, and I would go, and me and my friends would explore them, and we would take wood that they were using, and like in the middle of the night, we would build up these like forts out of all this wood. I was always obsessed with building things and being outside and testing my limits. I would go out and explore like miles and miles away from my house for 8 to 10 hours at a time, no food, and this is when I was young, like under 10, and that's just what we did, and it was fun. It was amazing. I built a zip line in my backyard, and I remember one year for Christmas I got like an old 4-wheeler off Craigslist, and a lot of my buddies had like dirt bikes, and we would just go and we would just ride 4-wheelers all day long, hang out, just go explore. And as I got older, started to do more social things, but I realized like I didn't think like most kids. Like I liked sports, but I kind of would get bored. Like everyone would be playing football, and like we had this huge green space that all the kids would go to after school, because basically the neighborhood was so huge that everyone I went to school with, like I just knew they lived somewhere in the neighborhood. The way it was laid out, and I'd play a couple games of football or something like that, but I just found myself getting bored. Like there wasn't enough substance to me. Like it wasn't entertaining enough, and I was good. Like I was really, really good, especially when I was younger, because I cared more. And even going into like flag football, I was really, really good, but I just and I knew I was hardworking. Like when I was in love with something, I was obsessed, and I just would nonstop work on that. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't think about anything else. Everywhere I would go, I would just talk about that one thing. I have that obsessive, addictive personality. But things like football and stuff like that just never, it never pulled those strings inside of me. Like for instance, I was obsessed with Legos. Obsessed. That's all I would think about, all I would do, all I would talk about. If I wasn't outside, I was playing with Legos. I was, watching videos of dudes using Legos when I was young. Like I was obsessed. I thought I was going to be a professional Lego builder when I was little, like some of you guys probably did. Or maybe that was just my weird ass. But I was obsessed with building things and going against the grain. I would get Lego sets, and I would build my own thing out of it. And I was just so obsessed with collecting all these Legos and building them up on my own. And that moved into, a bunch of different obsessions. When I moved from Legos, it was when I was like very, very young, like an infant, I was obsessed with trains. So I went from trains to Legos, and then I was obsessed with like airsoft and paintball. And I'm telling you, I would go all the way in. Like I would study every single part of these airsoft guns, take them apart, put them back together. I loved actually like the mechanisms of airsoft more than actually playing airsoft. I like to look at the guns and build them and shoot them and use all the things. So I've always been obsessed with building things and being adventurous. Come time when I'm about to go into middle school, it turns out that my dad wants to move back to where he was raised, which is in Georgia, and he'd been wanting to for a really, really long time. And I'll be honest, I loved where I lived, but something inside of me just thought that was so exciting, right? Like moving somewhere new. I didn't really mind. Like I said, I felt the older I got, the more I started to distance from everyone around me, because I just realized everyone was no one went against the grain. Everyone was the same. Everyone that you met, it was literally like a factory. And still to this day, people that I used to know when I was younger, every single person, they go to the same school, they do the same things, they go to the same college, they either go to Auburn or they go to Alabama, and they just get a normal job, and then they all end up looking the same, turning out the same. And I noticed that from a very, very young age. And I always felt like I didn't see myself doing that. And this is a key part. So I went to elementary school, my first year, like kindergarten and then first grade. And then my parents actually pulled me out. And they put me in this hybrid homeschool to where I was at this like co-op 2 days out of the week. So I was actually on a school curriculum, but it wasn't like a government school curriculum. So it wasn't like corrupt, and I wasn't learning about stupid shit that I didn't think was true. And I was reading classical literature. I was studying Latin, and I was studying Greek. I became obsessed with Greek mythology. I thought that was like super cool. And I think that laid a foundation for my brain to just like fall in love with learning, like I learned to write, I learned like real history, I learned how to think, doing all these things. And so that was from 2nd grade to right before 6th grade. And I had a lot of good experiences with that, but it almost taught me to work unconventionally. Because at school, I could do my work, right? I've been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, like anxiety, but I don't believe in any of that shit. I've taken Ritalin, I've taken Adderall, I've taken Vyvanse, never been prescribed, because my mom would never, ever, ever let me take any of those things, but I've taken it from friends and all that stuff. And for a while, I was convinced. I was like, oh, I need this medicine. Like, there's something wrong with me. I need it. And every single person, I think, has ADHD to a certain degree. If you go to a doctor and you tell them you have ADHD, they're gonna prescribe you medicine. Like, and I'm stepping on some toes, and I don't give a shit. I don't care how bad you think you need it. You don't. You're crippling yourself further. It literally comes down to you just sitting down and doing the fucking work. Of course you can't focus. You haven't built discipline. That's normal. That's every single person is like that. It doesn't matter what the doctor says is wrong with your brain. I like, we can fucking argue about that. But it taught me to work in a different way, because I would sit down and all day long I would just kind of like explore, and I would procrastinate my work, and I would eat, and I would just not do anything. And my mom would tell me to work. She would tell me to work. We would get in arguments and all this stuff, and I wouldn't work until everyone started getting home from school, and I wanted to go out and play. And then I was forced to get every single thing for the whole entire day done within the span of like an hour or two. And sometimes it sucked. And I taught myself to procrastinate. And I felt like I was decently smart, but I never pushed my limits. I never truly tried to study. But that foundation of learning that classical education at a young age really, really helped me. And so, fast forward to when I'm about 11, I'm about to turn 12. I find out that we're about to move, and I wasn't too upset, right? I was okay with leaving my family, or with leaving everything that I knew, because it sounded like Georgia was going to be a cool state to live in. And if you're not in America, Georgia's basically just like in the south above Florida, to the right of Alabama. But I was okay with it. And so, we moved, we did the thing. And it was going to be my first year like of middle school, and I was going to go back to a public school. And now, mind you, the culture in Birmingham, Alabama was nothing like the culture in Atlanta, where I live now. And the culture was so much faster. Like, I just started listening to rap music, and that was when like the fucking, I think that was back when like Vine was popping off, and Kevin Gates was like, I would listen to Kevin Gates while I was mowing the grass when I was like 9, 10, and 11. And that's a big thing that I think a lot of young men struggle with, is they were never forced to go outside and actually work. I was laying pine straw, pulling weeds, mowing the grass from the time I was like 8 years old, and I had a huge yard, doing all these things, learning to actually work with my hands, learning to, drill and use wood. And these weren't things that my dad would teach me. This was just, it was expected of me to pick these things up. And that is a blessing. And I used to look at work as a chore, and I didn't understand that we were genuinely made by our Creator to work, right? So fast forward back to, I move, I'm going to this public school, and, here I was, this kid who had literally, like, I'd never even, like, really hugged a girl. I liked girls, like, fuck, like, I was Snapchatting so many girls, but I had a lot of ladies, even from a young age, like, that were interested in me, but I didn't understand that the confidence came from, even at that age, the work that I put in. I would look at all these other guys who were, maybe less athletic than me, maybe, didn't look like I looked, right? And I wondered just how they had so much confidence, because I had every reason to feel confident, but I didn't know why. I just sort of, I didn't feel confident in my ability. And that's because I was blessed with a lot of potential. But because of that, I became complacent. I never pushed myself to actually try. As soon as I usually picked up things very, very, very quickly. And then I would become content because I'd be in the 1% of something super quick. But then everyone who wasn't blessed and actually had to work hard to get to where I was immediately surpassed me because they learned to work. And I didn't learn to work on my talent. And it's very cliche, but hard work beats talent every single time when talent doesn't work hard. And I got complacent with that potential that I had, and I didn't feel it was necessary for me to sit and work on these things extra. So I developed from a young age not working hard, not paying down ignorance debt on things that I was, already pretty good at. And I was just like, I'm already here. Like, what's the point of me spending extra time to do it? And so that started to rub off into my school. And as I got in with this culture, I snapped in so fast, like before you know it, it's like 7th grade, I'm vaping, I'm starting to smoke weed, like the culture's just so fast, and I just became like addicted to chasing that lifestyle. Like that was like the clout epidemic, all I cared about was like girls, and I became corrupt so fast because, not because I didn't have values, but because I was exposed to this world that I really knew nothing about so quickly. And that just led me down a path of, so many different things. Throughout middle school, I played football, and then I ended up quitting football. I was smoking weed, all the time. I wasn't really I would work out, here and there, but I was really, really skinny. And my main focus was just like girls and how popular I could be. But that summer of seventh grade, about, I'd kind of gotten over all the childish things I used to like, and I needed something to do because I didn't have a ton of friends here. And I ended up getting into downhill mountain biking. And any of you guys who don't know what that is, most people always think that like I used to ride BMX, but there's a huge community of like extreme mountain biking. If there's a lot of Red Bull events like Red Bull Rampage, all these different things, and that was my next obsession. I loved building bikes, I loved riding bikes, and I got really, really good. I got some minor sponsors here and there, and in 8th grade, my last year of middle school, the summer before that 8th grade, I was training for a race. And mind you, I still was participating in a bunch of bad habits and a ton of bad activities. That's when I started to, self-induce depression, anxiety, like wondering, all these things, because I was exposed to so much at a young age. It just led me down a horrible path. But mountain biking was like my escape. It was exercise and it was fun, and I was sending huge jumps. Like it felt like freedom. But it's an extremely expensive sport, like $5,000-$6,000 bikes that I would work my ass off, just doing jobs here and there, like mowing grass. I'd always learned to hustle and make money. If I wanted something, my parents were like, go fucking get it. Like go get it. We're not buying that for you. And I'm blessed for that. But my life really started to change during that time period, and I was training for a race in 2018. That was the summer before my 8th grade, and I was up in North Carolina at this place called Bailey Mountain Bike Park, and I overshot a huge jump, one of the biggest jumps in the park. I think it was like a 45-foot tabletop, and it wasn't out of my skill level. I was just excited to be there, and I wasn't using my head, I wasn't thinking, and I pedaled down the run-in, which all these trails are supposed to be ridden at trail speed, so you know you don't really have to pedal. So I was just going way, way, way too fast. I went over there was this roller and then a huge lip, and then the tabletop was really, really far, and I just like compressed into the roller, and I had just gotten a new bike as well, and that sent me, nose heavy all the way over. I probably landed at about 60 feet, so I way overshot this jump, landed front wheel, stomach, or my handlebar went into my stomach, boom, instantly blacked out, slammed my shoulder into this embankment. My dad was watching the whole thing, thought I broke my shoulder, and I was throwing up chunks of blood, and we're up on the top of the mountain, so I had to basically get like taken up the mountain and then like four-wheeler back down like the emergency access road and taken to the hospital. And basically, long story short, if I would have been out there a couple more hours, I would have just internally bled out and completely died. I ruptured my spleen, lacerated my pancreas, had to have my entire spleen removed. I was like throwing up chunks of it. They had to go in there and remove like pieces of my spleen that were literally like rotting inside of me. So I have this huge, scar down my whole entire stomach. Can't really see it right now because I'm, my stomach isn't shaved, but 21 staples, couldn't eat the whole time. I had a 3.5 hour surgery, and I woke up with a huge hole in my stomach, a tube coming out with like blood and mucus all in it, and didn't really remember anything, had no idea what happened. And I'm just laying in the hospital bed, and I look at my stomach, and it's all mangled, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, how'd I get here? I knew I wrecked my bike, but it seemed like the past few years had just been a blur. Like, how did I end up in this hospital bed, a couple hours away from death? Got saved. Really have no idea where I am, up in North Carolina. And I just sat there, and I was like, I never ever want to feel this way ever again. Just thinking about how weak I felt, and I had so much time on all the morphine that I was on, and not being able to sleep. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. I had a drip IV, obviously, but I couldn't. They had to make sure my stomach would start working again on its own, and if I were to eat, it would fuck up some type of my bodily process. So I couldn't eat for a solid 5 days. I couldn't like physically drink water. So obviously, like, they were hydrating me, but I was so thirsty. All I wanted to do was drink water. And keep in mind, when I came into the hospital, I had been riding a bike all day, so I was sweaty and I was hot, and that was one of the hardest experiences ever. So I barely slept at all, had IVs constantly being taken in and out of my arms, literally was in the most pain I've ever been in, couldn't sit up, couldn't turn. Every time I would cough, it felt like I was literally dying. Literally, I had staples like that would like bleed that were in my stomach. It was a horrible experience. I felt like a fucking robot when I would look down at myself. And I remember the day that I finally got out and I was finally able to stand up. I was going through physical therapy and stuff like that, but I would be in immense pain. But the day I finally got out, they finally let me leave. I think it was like 6 full days later. And my mom had come up there because my dad had to go back and go to work. And it just felt very surreal. I remember walking out of the hospital, and they had to wheelchair me out just to the front, and then I was able to walk, and I still had all the bandages from the IVs wrapped around me, and it just felt amazing just to put on normal clothes and not be in that gown anymore, that hospital gown, and just the thought of going home was such a blessing. And we pulled over because I had to go to the bathroom for the first time in like 5 days. When I walked into this, hotel, and my mom was there she walked in with me because I could really still like not walk that well. And I just remember seeing all these guys around me. And, we weren't in like a great part of town. But it really wasn't the fact, if I hadn't have been in the hospital, I wouldn't have cared. But I remember just having this thought, being like, if someone just like barely hit me right now, I would be completely immobilized. If someone was trying to, attack my mom or do something, I just thought like this, there wouldn't be a single thing I'd be able to do. I just felt so fragile, and like like I would crumble if the slightest thing, tried to come in contact with me. And it was crazy because just a few days before, yeah, maybe I was, maybe I was 14, but I like most 14-year-olds do, I thought I was invincible. I was like, oh, I'll beat up anybody. Obviously I would have got my ass beat when I was 14 if some grown man tried to, fight me. But you just think you're invincible. You don't think that you actually, like, anything can happen to you, or at least I didn't. And I remember in that moment, and in the hospital, like, it was a collective of thoughts and just thinking, I never want to feel this vulnerable ever again. And I made a vow to myself. Like, I was thinking about all the weed I was smoking, the vaping I was doing, the degenerate activities. And while I really had no plan to stop any of those things, I knew I had to commit to something. And that vulnerability gave me enough motivation. I dedicated myself that I was going to create like the most insane physique anyone in my family, because no one in my family was like ripped, no one was buff, no one had a physique, and I'd always wanted that. I'd always wanted to just be huge, but I never had the discipline to start and stick to it. And because my physique was decent, like I've got good genetics and everything. But getting out of that hospital, I was 140 pounds when I got admitted, and then after being home for about a week, I was about 100 and it was between 106 to 112 pounds. My stomach was all deformed. It was disgusting. So this was just a collective of thoughts where I decided, as soon as I'm able to, I'm going to turn myself into the most baddest motherfucker I can be. And I wasn't even thinking about the mindset yet. I was just thinking about my physique. I knew that I was going to go into the gym and give it all that I had gotten, all that I have. And so that's when my parents dropped on me that they were going to send me to this private school, which we didn't even really have the money for, but they thought that I was going down a bad path, and they thought that yanking me out of the middle school that I was going to and putting me in this private school was going to be good for me. And I just absolutely hated it. It caused me to rebel even further. I hated everyone that I hated everyone that I went to school with. It was horrible. I wrestled and I ran track and I did good. I almost won state in pole vaulting my first year. Ran the 400 meter, ran the 200 meter. Was good at that. Wrestled and I won the middle school, whatever championship that they have for middle school. I won that my first year wrestling. And that was after my injury, right? And I'd barely even really worked out. So I couldn't play football, but I was cleared to wrestle maybe 6 to 8 months after that injury. And I'm kind of going out of order, but I was able to do that. So those are the benefits that school did bring me. But I would go every single day, and I absolutely hated it. So that caused me to chase more girls, more smoking, more drinking. And I'd started doing a bunch of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups and all this stuff, like working out in my little home gym. But I never went to the gym truly. And I had like a high school weightlifting class, and I remember the vow that I made to become, like, I did start working on my physique, and I did it better, but the feeling that I felt in the hospital where I wanted to go, that stuck with me for years. And I can still feel that feeling of me laying in that hospital bed. Literally still, I can get goosebumps when I think about it. But yeah, so I went through middle school, did all that, and that summer is when everything started to just spiral out of control so fast. I started getting interested in working out, but I still wasn't really like going to the gym. I was just kind of working out in my basement. And I met this girl who lived completely across town. I was going to go into my freshman year, and this girl was just, she had so much more experience than me, you would say. I was just, some loser kid who thought he was, cool. I just fell head over heels. I thought it wasn't love, it was just like a lust. But I thought, like I was in love with this girl's body. I thought she was so mature. And mature meaning like she had just been in the streets for way longer than me. And I just thought that was a really, really cool thing. And I don't mean to say streets like, this generation refers to it. I just mean she genuinely had like been in a ton of relationships, done all these things because, she was Colombian. And I mean, you guys know how Latinas are, fucking crazy. If you love it, you love it. But, and it just completely ruined me. I completely changed myself to try and, like sway her to like me. Cause I thought like, oh, she's in this culture. I need to change all these things about myself. And, she liked me. We hung out for a while, but I think the fact that I just changed myself so much, she kind of just grossed her out. And she could tell. I don't blame her. She could completely tell that I was insecure, and I wanted people to think I was cool. And when you're trying to act cool, like you do so many like weird things. I wasn't me, and you could smell it. Like it was very, very loud, the fact that I was trying to embody somebody that I wasn't. And so I'll say like that was the first girl that and looking back, like this was such a blessing. Like fuck that girl. I don't care at all. But just that was the first girl that I like fell head over heels with and got depressed, and I was like listening to Juice World, doing all these things. And because of that, at like 15 years old, I just got so depressed because she decided like she didn't want to be with me, and I just never felt anything like that before. That was my first like heartbreak, if you will. And I started doing acid. I started smoking a lot more. Like I did cocaine sometimes. Like I was just all these different things that like a 15-year-old should not be doing. But I found the gym, and I guess what people call a villain arc now. That's what I was on. I would only go in the gym and use so much pain that I thought that the reason why she left me, I equated that she left me, like most guys do, with the fact that I was skinny. And if I was just to become big and like ripped, that, she would come back to me. And so that's why I started. And I would squat until I literally would have tears coming out of my eyes. My scar would bleed. I had skinny legs, and I would sit in there and I would bench press, and I would just train my fucking ass off. And I would just go in there with so much depression, so much sadness, so much anger, that it gave me an eternal flame. But I was still doing drugs. I was still eating like shit. Wasn't prioritizing getting any good rest or recovery, wasn't prioritizing any sleep at all. And it led me to, I started to see good results because I was getting those beginner gains. But, it was nothing crazy. I was really, really strong because I worked hard. By the time I was, almost 17, I was benching 315 at like 170 pounds. But I just realized that I started to slow down, and I started to just rely on the fact that I had good genetics. And, I started to see really, really good results, and I got kind of everything I wanted with my physique. I started to put on really nice physique, and then I was tested with all the things I had come from, all these girls, more options to party, more drugs and all these things. And, I'd gotten the physique. And, I hadn't had to work too hard on it. Hadn't even had to. Nutrition's the hardest part. A lot of people can go in and fucking train their ass off if they know what to do. Because I studied the shit from like 14, 15 years old. I was listening to old Mike Mincer, phone calls with old clients, all these things, like studying his books, how to train properly. But the eating, I was just like, nah, I don't need that, right? I was eating Zaxby's and fucking Chinese food and eating Sour Patch Kids and smoking weed, scrolling on TikTok when I got home, not even eating post-workout meals, didn't know about my meal frequency, eating an hour and a half before the gym, didn't know about having glycogen, none of that. I just went in there and I wanted to be as strong as possible. I didn't even know that the way that I was training wasn't going to put on as much muscle as I could have been putting on. I was just kind of going there and just like training as heavy as I could, not even really form that was gonna modulate muscle growth. I hate the word optimize. I say it when I'm trying to mimic fucking optimal people, but we'll use the word modulate. And so then that goes on, and I folded. I was offered, like, a lot more girls were interested in me. I had built a little bit of confidence. I was out in that scene doing drugs, going to parties, 15, 16, 17 years old, like going through high school. I'm sneaking into the club. I'm going out. I'm hanging out with like 20-year-old girls, 22, 23-year-old girls. And I just started to, I was just filling this huge void inside of me. No matter how many girls I slept with, no matter the drugs I did, no matter the PRs that I hit, it just built more darkness inside of me. And then I started to realize that if I didn't go into the gym angry and depressed and wanting to kill everyone, I wouldn't have a good workout. And I started to skip my workouts because I'm like, oh, I don't feel motivated today. And I was like, oh, it's a waste if I don't feel motivated. I genuinely fucking said that to myself. I didn't fucking understand that. I thought, oh, successful people, they're just motivated all the time. Like, I have good workouts when I'm motivated, so I'll just only go when I'm motivated. And so that just lasted through high school. And I built discipline in going to the gym, but I had no discipline with any money that I made, the jobs that I worked. Let me backtrack a little bit. The very first job that I had was, I started lifeguarding when I was 15, because I had to pay for all my stuff, and I wanted to get a car. I had that bike, I had to do that. But since I was really, really good at fixing bikes, I had my mom, I posted a Facebook thing on my mom's Facebook, and she had a lot of connections, and I guess a lot of people saw the post. I was getting like dozens of people reaching out, having me fixing their bikes. So that was my side hustle. But I would spend all my money on alcohol, spend all my money on weed, on food, on bike shit, just stupid things. I had no discipline in that. I had no discipline at school. I would just do just enough to get by, just enough. I wouldn't study. I'd stay up late. I'm really good at taking tests. Like, I can take a test, not study for it, and do pretty damn good. But I didn't turn in any of my work. I didn't do any of my projects. I didn't study any of that. And it bit me in the ass. And I thought, oh, well, as long as I'm focused on my workout, it's good. But like I said, since I had no discipline, I hadn't built any discipline, motivation comes and goes. And I started to sacrifice gains, and I started to just focus on pleasure. I was putting pleasure over purpose because I didn't even know what the fuck purpose was. And I played the victim. I had a victim mindset. I was like, all these things have happened to me. I've got a scar down my stomach, and a girl broke up with me, and I wasn't given the opportunities that these other people would do, and I would just doom scroll, and I was chasing clout, and I was just doing more drugs. I got to the point where I would smoke when I woke up, smoke before school, I would smoke before work, do all these things. And come about junior year of high school, I've slept with all the girls. All the girls from other schools. I've done all these things, and my physique is lacking. People are starting to pass me up because they're more. And I was known as the guy with the good physique because no one trained as hard as me. But I started to take that for granted, the same way that I used to take my work for granted when I was younger. And I was just focused on being cool, listening to music, just doing all this shit that was so empty. And people started to pass me up because they were prioritizing their sleep. They were learning about their nutrition. They were focusing on school. They weren't focused on the distractions and the emptiness that I was fucking focused on. And again, to go backwards, I think the reason I am the way I am now is because I hung out with so many different people. I hung out with like a bunch of like people that are in the underground rap scene in Atlanta. But I also grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, you know, with all my country friends. And, you know, I hung out with the druggies. I hung out with the people that did acid. I went to the club. All these things from such a young age allowed me to understand so many different dynamics of life. And while those things were horrible for me, it's almost a double-edged sword, because now I'm able to understand so many different sectors, so many different pain points, so many different lifestyles that people have come from. And that allows me to relate to so many of my clients, and I have so many different stories to tell. But in the moment, I didn't understand that, right? And everything just felt so lost. I would, no matter who I woke up next to, no matter what I drank, no matter what I smoked, no matter what I did, I would wake up the next morning and I would feel awful. I would just have this overwhelming feeling of all the things that I was putting off just coming and all crashing on me like a wave. I would put off my school, all of these things. And I'd saved up like $7,000 to buy this Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I bought it, and it was sweet. I really liked it. It was cool. It was all black, and I loved that. And I saved to put a sound system in it and all these things. But when I got to the height, or the you know, the rock bottom of and this had been my second rock bottom moment, because, you know, laying in that hospital bed was a deep rock bottom moment. But when I got to the deepest part of my sorrow, doing the most drugs, smoking the most, it was one day I left school in the middle of lunch with my friend, and we went to go get Zaxby's. And on the way back in the middle of school, I was pulling out, and I was looking in my rear view, and there was a car in front of me. The car in front of them slammed on their brakes, didn't put their blinker on, and it had just rained. And as I'm looking in my rear view, and I'm just not paying attention at all, and as soon as I look down, I see brake lights, and I slam my brakes, slide right into the back of this guy's truck, total my car. Car gets taken to the, you know, the place, you know, wherever they were gonna like hold it for me, because the wrecker took it. Someone broke into my car, stole my sub, my nice sound system, you know, stole a bunch of things out of my car, right? And that was just this rock bottom moment that I was like, man, I can't pay for this. Like, everything is going wrong. I was such a low frequency person. I was negative. I was jealous. I was wasting my potential. I had no idea what I was going to do, because my grades were shit and I wasn't trying. And it wasn't that I couldn't have good grades. I genuinely just didn't give a shit. I was focused on all the wrong things. I hadn't built any skill. I just was like a broke gym rat who didn't even take the gym seriously because I didn't prioritize my nutrition. And I just filled the void with more smoking, more drugs, more of all these things. You know, I was popping like Xans to go to sleep some nights, and just going out and just driving, just sneaking out all during COVID. All of these different things that just, it was just vanity. It was horrible. And I remember the moment when I decided it was all over was, you know, I met this girl, you know, that summer of my junior year, after my junior year, and this is like in the peak of my degeneracy again. And man, I didn't really think anything of it the first time I saw this girl. You know, my buddy was hanging out. He was like, yo, I'm having these two girls over. And I was just like, all right, like, I'll hang out with y'all, da-da-da. So I was there, and I'm with this girl, and, you know, I didn't really think much of it, but my friend liked her friend, and my boy did. If you guys have watched, you know, any of my videos and you've seen Grayson, I was with Grayson, and I hung out with this girl again, and we didn't do anything. We didn't hook up. We just, like, talked, and I just realized, like, wow, I've never felt, like, stimulated just, like, talking to a woman. Like, this girl she's so fun to talk to. She's just, like, fun to be around. She gets me. She, like, looks up to me. She thinks I'm cool, and I could just be myself around her. And you know, so I started to pursue her, and I started to do that. But And I was a horrible influence on her. I would always smoke her out, and we would do all these things. And I was lazy. And, I was working at a Jersey Mike's sandwich shop. I had like a decent physique still, because I was going to the gym hard. But, the more and more that I started to be with this girl, the more I realized that I liked her. And, eventually we started dating, and she really made me like reflect. I started to look at this woman as like, wow, this is the first woman that I've actually wanted to be with for a while, because I'd had relationships here and there, but I cheated on girlfriends because I didn't actually care about them, and just treated women like horribly. Like I would never want any man to treat my daughter, when I have one. And she opened my eyes. I started to care about this woman, and it made me like realize where I was. I was always high. I was like drinking at school. I'll smoke my bong every morning before before class. I would roll up a joint in the middle of lunch. All my bodybuilder friends, we would just smoke and go to the gym. That's just all we did. And we trained hard, but we were just degenerates. And I remember one night, and just living in my just undisciplined disgustingness. I was in my car that I had gotten. The only car I could get after I crashed my Jeep, because the insurance was so high, was this like, $6,000 Acura TL. And I got about $6,000 for my Jeep because I'd like done a lot to it. So, that was fine. And my insurance was like $128 a month. So that was like all I made from working at that sandwich shop, besides what I would spend on like buying zips and, taking that girl to a Mexican restaurant occasionally, and my gym membership. But I remember one night, it was super late. I got to the gym. I was looking at in the Acura TL. If you boys have been watching me, the legendary Acura. And I'm looking around, and I just see the disgust in my car. There's clothes, there's like food box back there. It smells bad. Car hasn't been cleaned in forever, and all I'm thinking about, I'm just fiending to smoke. And I'm at the point where it's like, weed isn't inherently addictive, but if you smoke weed enough, you become reliant on the gas. And like I was smoking like pressure. Like I wasn't smoking this, normal white boy shit. But so I remember I turned on this song called Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique. And I started smoking, and it was super, super weird when he says, smoked until his eyes would bleed. If you haven't listened to that song, it's very fucked up. You can go listen to it, but like it's very fucked up. So for me to have just been like sitting there just like chilling, listening to that, I was trying to put myself in that angry state before I went in the gym. And that just hit me. And this bowl that I just smoked hit me in a weird way. Like I smoked all the time. It was at the point where I didn't really get high much anymore, but I became very, very paranoid, and I like became very, very aware that I was living in disgust, that I was extremely undisciplined, that all my potential that I had, I was wasting, and that I wasn't working hard. And then I looked in my bag, and I realized that for the third time that week, I hadn't charged my AirPods, and I literally left like sweaty wife beaters from the past 2 workouts in my bag, and it was disgusting. And I was like, and I'd already taken my pre-workout before I smoked, and so I was super high, and the pre-workout was banging, and I was just like, and I'd done that hundreds of times before, but this time particularly, I just started to freak out, and I had no idea what was going on, and I was thinking about this girl, and I was like, holy shit, like, I care about this girl and this is how I'm gonna lead her. Like, this is what I give her. Like, I work at Jersey Mike's and I'm just this fucking bum who smokes weed, goes to the gym, has no plan. I'm in my junior year of high school. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm failing all my grades. And I started to just freak the fuck out. I'm so undisciplined. I can't even clean my car out. Like, I've accomplished nothing. I have literally no accomplishment to look back on my life and say, man, I'm proud of this. And that was an empty feeling. And I drove all the way home and I went upstairs and I literally, like, there were clothes all over my floor, cups, papers, all this shit. And I was like, how do I live like this? I just would come home, lay on my floor, then get in bed, go watch TikTok, eat shitty food. It was a constant cycle of despair. And no matter how badly I wanted to get out of it, because the motivational videos I saw on TikTok and Instagram, you know, I might try and wake up early once and I couldn't fucking do it. I couldn't pull myself out and I went fucking insane. And I looked in my mirror with tears coming out of my eyes. And this was not just some like high episode. I smoked all the time. This was genuinely, so much had built up inside of me that this was like my rock bottom moment where I finally, I couldn't deny the distractions anymore. And I looked into the eyes, like my eyes weren't even red anymore. My eyes were super, super red, like when I had smoked, because I have small little eyes. People always ask me, you know, like, why are your eyes so little? I don't know. My mom's eyes are little. And I looked into the mirror and I had tears coming out of my eyes. And I saw all of I was real with myself. Like, I'd been lying to myself every single day. I was like, oh, you go to the gym, you're disciplined, you know? Like, you've got friends, you're doing what everyone else does. I would lie to myself that I was actually doing something and I was actually worth something and that I was actually making a difference and using my life like it should have been. I was like, oh, this is what everyone does. Everyone smokes weed. Everyone just goes around and fucks hoes. Everyone just does this, right? And I looked at myself and it hurt. But I was honest about every single thing that I was doing. I told myself, I knew I needed to stop smoking. But I was like, oh, it helps my anxiety. It's the only time when I like feel normal. All my friends smoke. It makes my workouts better. I complained. I made all these excuses, but I looked at myself and I finally was like, enough of this. I cannot. And this had happened 3 or 4 times throughout my life. This time was the rock bottom. This time I sat down and I still have this journal to this day. And I've journaled every single day since then. And I wrote out every single solitary thing in my life that I was doing. And I was honest with myself to the point where it hurt and I felt like I lost my whole identity. I sat there and I was like, I'm a liar. I'm dishonest, you know. I'm smoking weed every single fucking day and it is poisoning me. I'm addicted to nicotine and it is poisoning me. I'm just filling the void with drugs, going out, people that don't care. I listed every single thing that was wrong with me, every single thing that I do out on that paper. And I just looked at it and there's literally teardrops in that page of them falling down. And I sat there and I created a whole entire, like, you know, college ruled notebook of exactly what I was going to do. I was going to wake up, you know, at 6 a.m. every single morning. I was going to take a cold shower. I was like, I'm going to eat fruit every day. I'm going to say something kind to someone. And I was like, I have to start working on a business because I knew from a young age, I'm not going to fucking college. I fucking knew I wasn't going to college. And I was my junior year. What else was I going to do, you know? I didn't want to work at McDonald's for my whole life. I knew I was more than that, but what had I done? I was working in a sandwich shop. What had I done to deserve more than that? And I realized, you know, I'm not going to be able to stay in this house much longer. Like, I barely can support myself inside my parents' house. What's it going to be like when my parents are like, peace, you're fucking gone? You know? They weren't going to let me stay there. I was being a degenerate. And so I sat there and I wrote out, you know, I wanted to start studying real estate. I thought, you know, like everyone does, thought real estate was going to be good. And I wrote these books that I was going to read 30 pages of book. I was going to pray every day. I was going to start studying my Bible more. And, you know, I was going to start tracking my food and I was going to learn about nutrition, just all of these things that I knew I needed to do. I was going to journal every single day and that I was completely done smoking weed and I was completely done with nicotine. Now, I started taking a cold shower that day, and I've taken a cold shower every single solitary day since, and that replaced that literally helped replace my nicotine addiction. I cold turkey quit nicotine. I remember, because the next day I remember being like, oh, fuck that, like I don't have to do that, I'll do that later. And I went to the store and I bought a brand new Kang, and as I was driving, I took it out and I hit it and everything. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You just had this epiphany last night, and you're already... So I threw it out of the window. Like, I just spent $40 on it, and I threw it out. And it was that emotional investment where I spent $40 on it, and everyone's like, oh, after this one's dead, I'll get a new one. After this pod runs out, I threw it out. And I never fucking vaped ever again. Never, ever vaped ever again. Still haven't. And I had been vaping since I was like 14, so that was a hard addiction to break. But I still kept smoking occasionally. I would stop for a couple weeks, and then I would start again. And I realized that, it was just causing me to be so lazy. Social media was causing me to be so lazy, and I felt like such a bad influence on this girl, because, she didn't really smoke before me. She'd smoked before, but I started to really, really fall in love with her. And so after a couple weeks of struggling, not being able to smoke the weed, what I decided I was going to do is I was going to delete all of my social media. And I was like, I've always wanted to start a business. I keep fucking forgetting to say shit. When I grew up in Alabama, I started like 3 YouTube channels. I always loved watching YouTubers, watching YouTube. And so, like, my dream was always to start a YouTube channel, but I just was like, oh, that's unrealistic, Like, no one wants... Like, I have so many videos from when I was younger, like, making vlogs of me out in the woods, riding zip lines, just doing all these things, right? So, fast forward back to where I was, and I'm sitting at my desk, and so I was like, I'm going to study real estate every single day. That's how I'm going to get into business, and I created this business plan, and deleted all my social media. I told this girl that, I was like, I really, really like you. I want to start. And so I asked her out, and I started focusing everything on becoming better. I started literally tracking all my workouts. I created a sheet. I started tracking my money. I started caring about my credit score. I just started full immersion, listening to podcasts all day long, studying, writing down them. I read Think and Grow Rich, I read As a Man Thinketh. I read, Rich Dad Poor, all the basic books to start out. Discipline Equals Freedom, Jocko Willink. Like, I read them all, and I became obsessed, and I successfully, I remember the day when I stopped smoking weed, and I haven't done it since, as I sat there and I was like, okay, I'm not going to smoke again. Because I couldn't say I'm just never going to smoke again, because I knew I would break that covenant. I said, I'm not going to smoke again until I have $1 million in my bank account. And I remember, like, envisioning me being in like a Rolls Royce with the stars in the ceiling, like sparking up a blunt. And I was like, man, that'll be great. But deep down, I knew that by the time I had $1 million, I would never want to smoke again. And I'm not a millionaire right now. I don't want to fucking smoke ever again. So, and yeah, I never want to smoke weed ever again. And oh, and on top of that point, if you think... I've got a video about this called Smoking Weed Gave Me Superpowers. Go watch that video if you're struggling with smoking weed. I fucking promise you need to watch it. Any of the excuses that you're making are bullshit. I could still work better than 99% of people did while smoking, yet 99% is nothing compared to 110% of the effort that you can give when you're sober. All the high-level people operate sober in a high state of frequency. That's what I do. That's what you need to do if you want to make it to the next level. Stop giving yourself an excuse and thinking that you're going to be able to become successful through these vices. It's not going to happen. So, started trying to study real estate, started journaling every single solitary day, and, cold shower, started studying my health more, 32 ounces of water in the morning, decided I cleaned my whole entire room. It took me like 2 days straight, and I was like, if I just do everything, how I do anything is how I do everything. That is why when I started to establish that principle, wash every single dish. I was so undisciplined, like, I wouldn't even brush my teeth some nights. Isn't that fucking disgusting? That's disgusting. What the fuck? What kind of loser was I? God, that's why I scream so much in my aggression talks, because I'm thinking about that version of me. That's why I get so fucking angry. That is why I get so angry. Because most of you guys probably haven't been as fucking low and degenerate as I've been, right? Most of you guys haven't. And I know you have even more potential than me. And that's why I get so angry and passionate, because I care. So I started studying that, and my life started to change drastically just from reading, quitting smoking, quitting vaping, deleting all social media was the greatest thing ever. I basically went on dopamine detox, but since, learning, listening to podcasts and audiobooks wasn't really like very dopaminergic for me at the moment. If you're like already on this journey, then, and you want to go on dopamine detox, you got to cut out all the podcasts because they're a form of entertainment. At the time, I didn't even like listening to the podcast, so I had to like immerse myself in the learning, and I just went down the rabbit hole. I wanted to start my first business, and I was thinking, I wanted to start a clothing brand. I wanted to start this. I wanted to start that. And my relationship with my girlfriend was getting better, and I started to make insane progress in the gym. And everything I'm about to tell you, from then to now is what's taken place over the past like 2.5 years. So that was really when I started this journey, like about 3 years ago, of like completely changing my life. Obviously it started when I got into fitness about 6.5 years ago, but when I completely started to change my life, it was about 2.5. And I'm gonna try and speed this up to where we are right now. But I started, I'm journaling every single day, waking up as early as I can. I'm not consistent with it, right? I'm trying to wake up at 6, trying to wake up at 5, some days waking up at 4. And this was during the summer, and school comes around, and actually no. So the very first business that I went to go start was I realized that journaling had kind of like changed my life, and it really, really helped me understand who I was. Because I had always been like, the fuck, journal? Like, I'm not going to go journal like a girl and be like, dear diary, this is what happened today. But I realized that just sitting there and waking up and writing down my thoughts, reflecting on my past, visualizing, things that I wanted to accomplish, helped me so much, like understand myself, almost as corny as it seemed. And so I was like, man, like I want other guys to do this. So my very, very first business that I set out to start was going to be a journal company. And my goal, like the top of my head was like, dude, like when I'm like 40, like I want to make $1 million a month, because I don't want to be some billionaire that has to like, fucking get raped and be part of the Illuminati. Like that's some shit we'll talk about later. I'm not trying to be like fucking Puff Daddy or anything like that. That shit is weird. I don't want to be that level of wealth, because you got to do wacky things for that. But I was like, dude, $1 million a month, like that would be insane. So I wanted this journal brand to be called $1 Million Month, and I was like, I'm gonna sell it to like executives who want to manage their day, and then they want to be able to journal and write out their daily tasks. Basically the 5-4-5 method that I teach to my one-on-one clients now, that I used to completely change my life, and I still use to this day. I wanted to create a journal that laid that out with like places for goals, places for notes, all these different things, right? And I saw that on Amazon, I was doing a lot of like product research. They were selling like crazy. They were doing like $500K a month, like multiple different journal brands. And so I was like, I'm gonna make this for guys, teach them how to do it, And I spent like 8 months researching and developing that, learning about paying down all this ignorance debt about shit I didn't know. Got with a manufacturer. I actually was working with a manufacturer that did like, I don't even know if this is a Halle Berry. I think she's famous. I think she's made some like songs or whatever. I don't really know. But I was working with the manufacturer that like helped her make her journal project. I remember them telling me that. And then it got to the point where it was like, I had to pay like $15K up front. I didn't fucking have that. I probably had like 300. When I had $300 in my bank account, I felt rich. And so I was gonna find someone to invest for me, and I had a couple guys who said that they would go in and do that for me, because I wanted this so bad. So I went to people around the community that had money. I pitched them my idea and all these things, but then it was keeping me up at night, the fact that I was going into a business of like paper and writing things down. And as I was doing market research, I was like, man, everything's moved to digital now. And I was like, I wasn't willing to take the risk. And I think I could have done well with that business, but I didn't know enough at the time, right? I hadn't paid down enough ignorance debt. So that led me into a a deep depression for a couple weeks because I had learned all these things. But what I'd done was I got a job working for, because school came around as that was happening, and I completely was like, I'm gonna sacrifice my senior year of high school, and started meal prepping every single day, eating my lunch outside, like with like the fucking like kids that aren't normal. And I would be on a bench, and I started wearing collared shirts to school. That wasn't me at all. So people were like, what's going on with this guy? Because I was pretty fucking popular, because all I did was chase clout, and like I was the guy, right? But it always left me feeling fucking empty. It always left me realizing, like, none of these people care about me. I don't care about any of these people. And you can go back to my videos back in June, and you can see when I was, probably like a year deep in that self-development journey, the way that I was still thinking back then. But, I went from that, and I realized, I can't do this. So I was working for a junk calling company, and I did a lot of my classes online that year. So I was waking up at 5. I was driving all the way to this bodybuilding gym, because I also I wanted to just bodybuild insane, because I was like, man, I got to go all the way. I got to go all in. So I was meal prepping. I was making all my food, learning so much about nutrition. I was waking up at 5 a.m., going to train at this bodybuilding gym. I was getting home, and a lot of days I would just completely skip school, and I'd go work for this junk calling company all day, and then I would text my teachers, because we still had this curriculum from COVID where you could see all your assignments online, and I would do my assignments online when I got home, or I would stack them all on one day, on like a Saturday and Sunday, and then I would send them to my teachers so that my grades weren't just absolutely failing. And then I would work for that junk calling company, and I would work long, 12-hour days, and it would absolutely suck. We were in shitty houses, all these things. So I was waking up at 5 every single day. As soon as I got home from the gym, eating my next meal prep, I would get to the junk calling lot in my little Acura, and then we'd junk haul all day till 4, and then I would either go work at Jersey Mike's, or I'd go home and I would study and work on my business if I wasn't scheduled to do that. And then I picked up another job. It was a moving company. So the days when I couldn't do the junk hauling, I would do the moving, and I would do that on the weekends. And I was trying to save as much money as I could, but I was spending all this money trying to, find businesses that I could run. And I had this one night where I was like, man, I can't do this journal business. It's not going to work. And I really, since I'm good at building things, I wanted something that I could create with my hands. I didn't want to deal with a manufacturer. And long story short, after saying no many times and refusing to do it, I came across candle making, and it was my pride that was in the way. I was like, what the fuck? Look at me. I'm not gonna make candles. I've never even lit a candle in my life. But I went all into that because I knew that I could teach myself how to make it, and I thought that there was a gap in the market, and I was like, there's no cool candles for masculine men. Well, obviously, because guys aren't fucking worried about candles. But I didn't know enough about business to realize that if you can't create a market. I mean, you can over a long enough time horizon, but I, as a 17-year-old who didn't know anything about business, I wasn't going to create a market. But I spent all this time creating the coolest fragrances ever, and I'm even gonna do a video where I show you guys some of these old businesses that I've worked on, and because it was actually a really cool brand. But I started losing a ton of friends. Everyone was making fun of me, oh, John Mark's a fucking candle maker. I was posting videos on my Instagram through Safari, losing all these followers and stuff like that. Still doing dopamine detox. Everyone sees me outside eating, and I'm just researching. I'm obsessed. I started running Facebook ads. I'm literally going in the hole hundreds of dollars a day, and I'm not even making that much. And it's just wake up at 5, go to the gym, having no money, getting home, eating my meal prep, going out to the lot, doing junk hauling all day long. Really didn't even have enough money to go out to eat. And then I would get home, and I'd either go to Jersey Mike's, and when people weren't in there, I would try and do homework on my laptop, or I got a boogie, or I would study, I would study my business. I would get home, and it'd be super late, and I had to finish my, nightly routine, and I would reflect, and then I would try and meditate, and then I'd have to wake up again at 5 a.m. And some days I would wake up and it would just literally feel like I was trapped in my bed. But I did this over and over again, and I was in the hole thousands of dollars. And then I got I moved from Jersey Mike's and I got a job at this Mexican restaurant, and I absolutely hated it, but I was getting paid more, and I was paying down so much ignorance debt. And then the next summer came, and I just, every single day I would junk haul or I would move, and then I would work at that Mexican restaurant for months. And then I quit that Mexican restaurant, and I got a serving job at this nicer restaurant. And so I was serving there, but I felt so desperate, and my business still hadn't done anything, and I just kept being like, this is it, like I have to keep going. It's just months and months of losing money, no sleep, still going to the gym, learning more and more about tracking my food, just like obsessive, right? And all of these things happen, and I finally get like my candle business, it's like launched, and I decided to quit. I decided to quit working at that restaurant because I hated it. Everyone in there was like 40 years old. They had been working there for years. They all smoked weed and they were fat, and you made good money, but I was like, I don't want to fucking do this for the rest of my life. And so that happened, and I was just losing so much money, and I went into this really sad state, and me and my girlfriend broke up. It was just kind of like mutual. We just were arguing so much, and after that, I was tested again, and I failed. I let lust overcome me with a few women, and it got back to this girl. And even though I loved this girl with my entire heart, she was heartbroken. It, like, right after, like, I didn't cheat on her, but right after our relationship, I would just go right back. And I didn't smoke, I didn't break my routine, any of those things. But I was big on remaining, like, I wanted to stay together with one woman, and all these things happened. So months go by, and the pain of her being sad, and this is the only woman that I had like ever cared about, ever truly loved, drove me to a point where my business, I was losing so much money. I was like $6,000 in debt probably, staying up till 3 a.m. working. I was getting 2 hours of sleep some nights, and then when that summer came, I was finally able to spend a lot of my weekends and stuff working on the candle business. And I was making some sales here and there online. I was learning a ton about business, but again, there was just not really a want in the marketplace. I was going to these pop-up venues and shops. I was learning to sell and all these things. But what I was also doing is I was building my network. I went and I met with a bunch of CEOs. I met with a bunch of, I actually met with I'm not going to say his name because you guys would know, but like one of the original YouTubers in the personal development space. He lives around me, and I got connected with him, and I went to his office, and he helped me a lot, gave me a lot of pointers with my candle business, and he actually gave me a lot of pointers with what I should do in starting a personal brand, and I didn't really listen to him. But then I decided, I'm going to start training people on the side to do what I did, because people had seen how insane my physique had changed, and they'd seen me just kind of drop off the map. And even though I didn't have social media, people were texting me. So I started training people in the gym, training them in person, and me and this girl, we talked it out a lot, and we finally made amends to come back together, and that's been a really, really good decision. But we ended up breaking up again for like a period of 3 months, right around when I was starting this YouTube channel. We were back in December, we were broken up, but it was just that needed to happen. We just both needed time off, and we've come back together like again. And I'm never ever one to say like get back with like a woman, but this woman has been there for me from the start, and she's been down with me. And she has been the only woman who's like been willing to grow at the rate that I'm willing to grow. And we argue, we have problems like all relationships do, but I love that girl to death, and I like, that's who I want by my side. And she's been a big help within my change. But that's the only reason she's stayed with me is because I've transcended into a man that is worthy of her. She's fucking beautiful. Like, she could get like any man. And she chooses to be with me because she's seen my growth, and she understands my aura, and she understands that no guy that she were to ever even think about being with could match me. And, you know, I fucking earned that. And I could have, at this point, you know, I could have any girl that I want, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it because they're not going to have that connection that I have with her. And so candle business is failing. All these things are happening, but I'm starting to train people online here and there, and I'm training them in person. And through all the networking I was doing, I got 2 huge job opportunities to work in these corporate jobs. Even though I didn't need a college degree, any of these things. I'm talking like starting out making $25 an hour with like chances to work my way up to like 250 grand a year. Like, and my parents were like, you have to take it, you have to do it. So I had these 2 huge interviews. And this is right after I'd quit that last job, and all I'm doing is junk calling. I'm doing all these things, and I both the interviews, they accepted me because I'd learned how to sell myself. I'd learned how to communicate. I had a very high frequency. They could tell I'd been reading. I'd educated myself, and that I was going to be a good investment for their company. And I really wanted to take them because I felt like if I didn't, you know, I was lost. But I bet on myself, and I was like, you know what? If I say yes to this job, I'm saying no to who I know I truly can be. And it was very, very scary. And my parents were pissed. They basically told me, like, don't stay here. And I decided to go personal train at a gym because I realized I was getting really, really good results with a lot of my clients. But, you know, I wanted to go to a gym and get certified. I got NASM certified, ISSA certified. And I wanted to learn how to manage people in person better. So I've been training people at the gym just like by myself, and training people online and getting good results, but obviously I couldn't support myself like that. I decided to turn down those jobs, and it was very, very fucking scary. But I'm so fucking glad that I did that, because by doing that, I personal trained at the gym for like another 8 months. And then with no job and my candle business completely failing, I decided to quit. I had a little bit of money. I remember back when my candle business, maybe like 6 months in, I was so broke that my Shopify store got shut down because I didn't have enough money to pay like the $90 monthly bill because of the shipping labels I had used. And I screenshot it, and I was like, I'll never ever be in this situation again. And only because I had built something inside of me that was so unbreakable was I able to turn those jobs down, bet on myself, and go take up a $12 an hour gym personal training thing for like another 8 months to basically fully sharpen. Like, it was the cherry on top with what I needed for my sales skills. And I started my YouTube channel, and I decided to go all in. And I knew that all the business that I had learned over the past like 2 years, the ignorance debt that I had paid down, was not for nothing. And that what I had built out of myself and how I had completely transformed my life, I knew that I wanted to teach that to others. And it was so much deeper than just fitness. I developed an insane physique, especially for my age and everyone around me. And so many people were asking me, and they just, you could tell the transformation that I'd made. So I turned down those jobs. I started personal training there. I started my YouTube. And, you know, after personal training for about 7 to 8 months, that's when I went full in on YouTube. And I was like, you know what? I'm only making making a couple $1,000s from personal training, between the gym and some people from Instagram and my YouTube. I had a couple clients on like retainers at $400 a month and stuff. I quit the gym. My parents were also pissed. They were like, you turned down these corporate jobs to be a personal trainer, and now you're going to quit because you think you want to do YouTube. But I knew, because I had so much conviction inside of me, and I'd changed so much about my life, that I had enough ignorance debt paid down that I was going to be able to take what I had done to myself and do it for others. Started making videos, started getting people coming in, started getting insane transformations. You can go in my description and click on my Instagram and go and look at the results that I've had. Started training people, and, you know, all the journals that I wrote during the time when I was, working at that gym, was about how I wanted to create a community of the most like-minded men who were all pushing towards the best version of themselves every single day through self-transcendence, learning about their mindset, habits, nutrition, and training, which is what I teach inside of my programs called the 4 Pillars of Man, along with implementing the 5-4-5 method so they could break away from their vices, smoking, pointless sex, and, nicotine, all of these stupid things, like overindulgence of dopamine through social media, all these things that I teach inside of my program that are literally real world skills that will build you into a man who can make as much money as you want, get any woman that you want, and live a fulfilling life. And that is what I do now. That is what I'm teaching. I'm 9 months into having this online training and fitness, mindset, and education business. But I'm like 2.5 years into business, and I just bought my dream truck. I'm making more money than I ever could have imagined, but I'm so far away from the goals that I want to achieve. And there's probably a bunch of things that I left out of this story. I'm back with that woman, and we've been together again for like another 4 months, and couldn't be happier. We're both growing. She's helping me so much, know about myself, and I'm just completely focused every single day on my purpose and my passion of helping other young men grow and understand the frameworks that I did, and understand that everything you are looking for is not external, it's inside of you. And you can go down the path, take 3 or 4 years and understand what it takes, or you can pay money to gain time and have it taught to you and have guidance. And that's always what I recommend. If I could go back at the beginning of that and I had money to invest, I would have invested all the rest that was in my bank account in a coach or in a mentor so that I could have made that progress faster, because who knows where I'd be right now. But back then when I had that mindset, I was like, coaching, courses, that's a scam. That is a scam, because that was a reflection of me, That was the way that I looked at everything else, was a reflection of me. And that's where I am today. Over these next few months, I'm going to be changing things about what I teach. Right now, I believe I have the absolute best fitness, best fitness and nutrition and mindset protocol that the industry offers for changing lives. That's why my results have been so good. But I'm adding more things. I want to add a lot more things in the future, and I want to talk to you guys about what I'm building to offer more. So anyone that joins my training right now, obviously over the next 3 months, as I'm changing the product, it's going to get more expensive. But by booking a call with me now and coming into my program, you'll basically just be grandfathered into that. So all the more value that I provide on top of what I provide right now, you'll just basically get for free. So if you're ready to change your life, even if you've started a business, you're making 10, 20, 30K a month, and you're not disciplined in every area, if you're still struggling with watching porn, that just makes me remember, I didn't even talk about my porn addiction. I'm going to do a whole nother video on that. But that whole entire time, that was the biggest thing that I beat, was along with the weed, was my porn addiction. Wow. See, this is what happens when I don't, write shit down. But it's what happens when you're ADHD. But the porn addiction is what kept me having mindless sex with all these girls, and just kept me just so insecure and inside myself. It actually made me and that woman break up the very first time, because I was so focused on lust. But that is all of the things that we do inside of my program. So if you're making money and you're still watching porn, or you're making money and you're still sleeping till 10 a.m., just because you're disciplined in one area, just because you've gotten rich off some Bitcoin, or you have a sales job, or you've started your own business and you're making some money, that does not mean that everything is great. If you are not pushing your limits every single day and doing every single habit and task that you have with intensity and intention and pushing towards the highest version of you every single day, you're wasting time and you're wasting your potential, just like I was. And I don't want that for you. I put a book a call link in the description so you have easy access to me and the exact tools that you need to take advantage of the highest version of you. And you're a fool if you sit and you complain about not moving forward or wondering why your life isn't getting better, if you don't take that opportunity. It's simple as that. This process has made me unbreakable. And I'm going to create an infinite number of unbreakable warriors through this program and through Aggression Elite. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be making videos over the next few months about, more about my business, more about specifically training, specifically nutrition. I want to do a vlog series called Purpose Over Pleasure. And, I'm going to start posting studies. I'm going to do experiments with sleep, because I wake up at 4:25. I don't get 8 hours every single night, and I feel great, but I understand that some people need that, right? That's a big controversy. I want to show my continued progression on and on and on, so you guys can continue to learn and receive value from everything that I've created in my life. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. I appreciate you if you watch this far. I fucking love you. Subscribe if you haven't. I promise you it will be worth it, because I'm going to continue to grow and I'm going to continue to pour my heart out into this content. Going to have another aggression talk coming for you boys in the morning. I love you guys. Stay aggressive.